They fixed the clock.
They fixed it.
Magic.
I just noticed.
Good afternoon. Today is Tuesday, May 28th, 2024. It is 5 p.m. We are here for the regular trustee meeting. If you can join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have an agenda before us? Are there any changes or additions?
Yes, Board, I recommend under legal, we add a resolution for a cannabis moratorium.
Anything else? If not, do we have a motion to accept as amended?
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
I make a motion to accept the general ledger report in the amount of $359,531.30 for the 5/1/2024 payroll.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to accept the general ledger report in the amount of $347,270.82 for the 5/15/2024 payroll.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
I make a motion to accept the payment listing report in the amount of $725,847.32 for warrants through 5/23/24.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes. We have minutes from the April 22nd, 2024 regular trustee meeting. Are there any changes, additions, questions, concerns, comments?
I have none.
Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from April 22nd, 2024 regular trustee meeting.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
I'll abstain.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes. Okay, at this time we ask open the microphone up to any citizens desiring to speak. Seeing none, we'll move on. We have no old business. We'll go to new business. Mr. Rushing.
Thank you, Board. First is we were requested by the city to obviously show our appreciation for one of their longstanding employees, and that is Police Captain Sean Sumner. He is retiring from the Beavercreek Police Department. We were invited to also participate in his retirement ceremony, which will be circulated with the board yet this week. Before you is a proclamation. I would recommend it being read in its entirety in the record.
A proclamation recognizing the career service and retirement of firefighter L. Scott Addis.
This is for
Captain
Sean Sumner, Beavercreek Police.
That's me.
Captain Sean Sumner.
Okay, sorry about that.
Make a motion for resolution 2024-0528-admin-E, a proclamation recognizing the retirement and commending of the career of Beavercreek Police Captain Sean Sumner. Whereas Beavercreek Township greatly appreciates and values its longstanding partnership with the City of Beavercreek Police Department, and whereas the members of the Beavercreek Police Department interact, support, and serve residents of Beavercreek daily, and whereas among those members is Police Captain Sean Sumner, who has announced his retirement from the Beavercreek Police Department, and whereas Captain Sumner has served with distinction and valor to residents of Beavercreek for over 32 years, and whereas Captain Sumner has held numerous positions with the City of Beavercreek Police Department, from patrol officer, field training officer, sergeant, and ending with the rank of captain, overseeing various divisions such as special services and operations. And whereas Captain Sumner has received much well-deserved recognition throughout his career through various awards, medals, and recognitions that embody the career of Captain Sean Sumner. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of Beavercreek Township do hereby extend its sincere gratitude to Captain Sean Sumner, and well wishes are his much-deserved retirement from the City of Beavercreek Police Department and thank him for his over 32 years of service in protecting Beaver Creek.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Board. We'll move on to Greene County Sheriff's Office. We do have some informational items. I'll turn it over to Sergeant Sean Kessel to present those. Some data points were circulated to the Board earlier in the week, and I also have printed copies here for you if you pass that.
Hello again, Board.
Getting some feedback.
Yeah.
Mr. Rush, I don't know if you can hear it or not.
That's better.
Go ahead.
Okay. Just a few things, Board. I do want to mention that I did apply on behalf of the township for the One Ohio grant to the state of Ohio. It's opioid money that's being dispersed to jurisdictions throughout the state. I focused on the application. It was actually focused toward community effort or community outreach events. It was hoping to further the community outreach efforts. So hopefully we'll hear something in the next couple months regarding the status of that application. Also, I wanted to mention that I know you have the numbers already, but the May 2nd drug interdiction on US 35 with the task force was highly successful. I know that the information was passed already from Captain Ng, but I just wanted to publicly say that that was a wonderful group effort with Beavercreek PD, Ohio State Highway Patrol, and the Sheriff's Office, canines, township deputies. It was successful, and I think it's going to go a long way with being able to further some investigations and work in the county.
Great.
Any questions concerning your report?
I just want to thank you for being out there at the EMS at the Green Saturday and taking the time to talk to the citizens and pass out the badges and the little sheriff's cars and stuff for the kids. I think they all enjoyed that.
My pleasure. Those events are a lot of fun. Look forward to more of them in the future here.
Pass on our appreciation to those that were involved in the interdiction effort. So obviously you never know what you're going to pull over and what the situations can arise, and everybody leaves work in the morning or in the evening and plans to go home. And with Memorial Day just behind us, we never know when that lottery ticket will be pulled. So appreciate that and pass on our appreciation
Okay, I will.
for people putting themselves in harm's way for others. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board. We now move over to Human Resources. We do have two policies for your consideration. I'm going to speak about them both, if you would allow me. They are not completely dependent upon one another, but they are correlated to one another. The first on the agenda is sports at work policy. This policy does represent, I believe, our continual support to allow a pathway to provide our employees the ability to engage in recreational activities at work. We do recognize solely that we do have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers to ensure that the monies that we do collect go to the intended purposes of those monies, and chiefly among that is the direct service delivery to our residents. However, I believe it's fair to say on behalf of staff, and I'll let the board speak for each of you, a point of view, but we do recognize that sports and recreational activities, when appropriate and when allowed, does create a sense of synergy. Team activity encourages increased boost to morale and also allows a much needed break and the otherwise intensive work that a lot of our employees do each day out. So with this policy, we are recommending approval of this policy, which would, one, permit sports at work. There's a litany of different type of ball sports team activities that are permissible, with the belief that we also need to protect and perform our fiduciary responsibility, and that is to try to reduce risk and try to reduce exposure whenever feasible and whenever practically allowable. So with that, it does recommend, and in the policy, states that a waiver is prescribed and that a waiver will be assigned to engage in these activities. Be happy to answer any questions. This is a starting point, and I'm happy to use this as a boilerplate or to wordsmith if the board wants to take a different direction.
Couple of questions, Mr. Rushing. So when this came up before, I know it was focused or centered around pickleball, but you've added some other things in here that may or may not include a little more physicality to them. And so, things such as football, for example, you say it including catch. So is it flag or is it tackle?
No, this policy does prescribe that each department head would manage and would recommend the allowable items, and it'd be a directive that no physical hand-to-hand or no actual contact sport would be recommended.
Okay. Because you have other things in here, and then whenever you end with comma, et cetera, that's not definitive. So it could come into as Greco-Roman wrestling. Is that okay?
From my point of view, no. As long as I'm township administrator, that would be a directive that no contact sports would be allowed.
Okay. So I don't know if the policy needs to state that or not. I'm just pointing out examples. So
and we'd be happy to amend that to state no contact sports are permissible.
And mainly from a standpoint of making sure no one does. I mean, you're never going to be able to prevent someone from getting hurt accidentally, but there's the accidental injury, but then there's obviously then what can escalate after that, or if someone thinks that that someone else is being too rough or whatever. So it's just in the attempting to avoid a problem or an issue before it surfaces. You mentioned in the policy essentially that there would be a waiver as far as if they're injured participating in something, that it would be, and I assume that's going to state that it would be considered a non-work, an off-duty injury, essentially,
Correct.
even if they're on duty and participating in a sport. And from a legal perspective, we can delineate between that.
Yeah, in fact, the BWC has a set form that they put out there that we would use.
Okay.
Yeah, upon our research, there is a standardized form that the Bureau of Workers' Compensation already produces.
Sure.
So as far as their order of doing business, sits right within that.
Okay. And then the second question would be that the policy doesn't specifically state one way or the other if activity is to take place indoors or outdoors. And so a concern just as far as taxpayer optics of we have an entire department out playing in the parking lot and taxpayers driving by and seeing that. On the flip side, pulling apparatus out of the building on a rainy day to play on the inside doesn't seem like great optics either. And so how would you address that?
Well, I think in the public sector, we do a lot of things that the greater public does not quite understand. I could point out numerous examples, but I would take that as an opportunity to engage with the members of the public to educate them as best as we can of why we are acting the way we act. For example, we encourage members of staff to engage in public while they're out doing code enforcement. I know regularly our code enforcement officer purposely opens her windows when she drives around to try to engage. Every morning, all the crews go out and get their groceries for the day, and they use that as essentially a mini public education opportunity to park their apparatus in front of Kroger to engage in the public. We do a lot of activity that, yes, on the surface level may seem odd, but we use that always as an opportunity to educate and foremost engage within the public. The optics are certainly there, but in the grand scheme of what we're trying to achieve, I think outweighs those optics.
So in the winter, we're going to pull a couple $1 million worth of trucks outside to play pickleball.
I wouldn't, but I can't speak to what others would do. If that would be a desire of the board to prohibit taking apparatus entirely out of their primary location, we could certainly wordsmith that and put it into a policy.
I mean, some of it you have to leave, obviously, I would think, to the discretion and the leadership, essentially, of that station to say, our primary duty is to be ready to respond. And an iced up windshield on a truck, or say leaving a truck sitting outside, any of the apparatus, in a state where it's not ready or it delays our response, that's a big problem. And so I don't know how you wordsmith that. I'll leave that to you and Ms. Frick. The overarching concept is good, and there can be some good come out of it. There are just some things as far as optics, and then I've seen some wicked pickleball games, and I've seen some that are pretty laid back. And the older the player, the more wicked the game sometimes. So as far as, it just, like I said, there's an opportunity for some good, but the optics you don't realize until it's time to put the levy on the ballot and they say no.
Sure.
So they don't always stop in and say no, or why did you do that? So it's the silent concerns that don't get expressed until it's time to vote. So, or somebody takes a picture of it and puts it on a postcard and mails it out against you.
Sure.
So,
And I think all these concerns are valid, and certainly, although sometimes we forget, we do have great employees who work here, and we do have great individuals that do try to do their best with the expectations given. So these are the types of conversations that, you're right, may be difficult to wordsmith into a policy. But now that you raised them, certainly all those department heads sitting in this room, me as your township administrator, and those watching this are fully aware of the optics. So that would just take us being adults and being a designated adult in the room to try to manage that as best as we can. So I don't know if there's a way to wordsmith it, but I certainly would try to work with our staffs in order to make sure we achieve your outcome. So
I think
hear you
adding
loud
the
and clear.
non-contact piece of it, just to the description of what are acceptable alternatives as far as sport, and then understanding that there are some guardrails as far as what to think through before doing, which even adults sometimes don't do, so myself included. So,
Absolutely.
okay.
Understood.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I had comment in that I'm happy to see this move forward, in that I think that I think it's a good team building effort on your part for our firefighters, and some good synergy to work together instead of being separate islands upon themselves. I think having some social sports and to move around a little bit, I think would help them all, and maybe understanding each other and communicating a little bit differently. So I'm happy to see this policy come to play. And with the waivers, I'm sure their supervisors will educate them on the fact of that they have to have a waiver, and but it's their volunteer. They can volunteer to do this or not, but I think that it will enhance some team building that we definitely need in our fire department.
And I would note on board that, I know it gets lost because the term waiver is a heavy word. You're waiving a perceived right. But what we are not asking for a waiver for is we provide employer-sponsored health insurance. We provide employer-sponsored pay time off. We are not asking the employees to waive those rights, as we never would. So in case of an injury, we are asking to try to minimize our financial liability for something that is not directly related to our mission of our organization. So with that, we will still essentially be providing them paid medical care and paid time off, so that if they do indeed get a injury that is off duty considered by the BWC waiver, it's not as if they're left hanging, so to speak.
Right.
They are taken care
They're
of in that
protected.
regard.
But it's treated as off-duty injury.
Correct.
Not as an on-duty injury.
But just as if they go home and play basketball and get hurt, they have insurance to cover that for those very reasons. And we would treat that no differently here. So we're just trying to minimize the overall financial output potential for that.
And Ms. Frick, the existence of a policy doesn't create an implied that it is on duty?
No, not if there's the sign waiver.
Okay.
No.
Any questions? Concerns?
No, I don't have anything to add. I think that you guys pretty well covered all of my questions that I had.
Okay.
So with that, I did hear that there is a wish to amend the proposed presented sports at work policy to include prohibiting contact sports. So it can be passed as amended with that specifically mentioned in your motion.
Yeah, I think you can just literally say any individual or team non-contact sport or activity.
Sure.
If you just add that word in between team and sport, it covers it. I don't personally like comma, et cetera, but you can always amend it later, but it's up to you. So, okay.
You could take out the comma, et cetera, because you already have including but not limited to.
Right.
So I think you could take out the comma, et cetera.
Yeah, and then just add an and in front of volleyball and a period after it, and you're done.
I'll make a motion 202-40528-HR-A to adopt the sports and work policy as amended.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next is the fitness activity at work policy. One of the things to note, Board, is that, this is not my phrase, I take this from someone else, but it is important to note that, we are here today because of our history, meaning, it sounds obvious, but when you say something out loud, it does make it more clear and concise. This policy here has been a off and on policy for many decades. We have always encouraged our employees to engage in fitness activity and even allowed to do so during certain controlled times during the workplace, because we can directly tie that to certain departments' missions as well as all of the employees. We know as a fact that the less utilization of insurance, the more healthy our employees are, and the more they're engaged directly impacts our premium and our experience when we go to renewal for the various insurance policies that we have. Obviously, primarily one of those is health insurance. So what this fitness activity at work does prescribe is essentially what we are doing today. It essentially codifies it to ensure that we're being clear and concise, and that when we're questioned, we have a policy to reference and point to for when we do hold those to accountability and when we enforce this. It does allow each department, this is township-wide as the previous policy, this is a township policy, not specifically for the fire department, including all of the township departments, to allow each department the ability to control when they allow this and what is encouraged. Different departments operate differently. They have different scheduling, whether it be 24-hour, whether it be 12 hours, 10 hours, 8 hours, and their assignment of work is different, so it does allow each department to dictate if they allow their employees to engage fitness activity at work. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I don't really have any questions. It just memorializes what past practice,
Absolutely.
informal past practice.
I don't have any questions.
I make a motion to adopt 2024058-HR-B, adopt the fitness at work policy as presented.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. We'll now move on to community development at risk. First item was recommended by the Board. It is a resolution to recommend the text amendment to the zoning resolution and then transmit the copy to the zoning commission to prohibit trees in the street right-of-way. This resolution has directly come out of live examples where we experienced throughout various developments in the township where we have line of sight issues, we have potential issues in regards to damage to infrastructure, and also prohibiting township services from servicing certain areas of the township. This text amendment does start the process. It is a lengthy process. The board can initiate the process, When it goes to the zoning commission has to have a public hearing. Concurrently, the Greene County Regional Planning Commission also reviews and provides their recommendation. Zoning commission will have the public hearing as well as also provide a recommendation back to the Board of Township Trustees. And the Township Trustees will also have a public hearing to consider this action. We did refine the process to ensure that we're in step with the Ohio Revised Code. So upon approval of this recommendation, a certified copy will be sent to both Greene County Regional Planning simultaneously and to Zoning Commission. And there's drafted language there of the proposed section. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So when you say nothing in this section shall be deemed to require a change in plans lawfully approved by the township prior to the effective date of this section, so it does not obligate, but a developer, it's a may, not a shall. Is that correct? A developer may choose to not, if a plan was approved with, and we really don't approve landscaping plans at the BZA or at and even a specific site plan, we ask for a landscape plan, but we don't approve a landscape plan. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So if a plan has been approved through a specific site plan, or a phase of a plan, so if you have 5 phases and phases 1 through 3 are complete and phases 4 and 5 have not been submitted yet, 4 and 5 would or would not be subject to?
If they were lawfully approved and
No, if they have not been submitted yet.
if they've not been submitted, then they would have to come into compliance with this section of the code.
When you approve phase 1, do you require, you don't have a plan for phase 5 necessarily. You might, but most likely don't, because they want flexibility to be able to change the plan down the road without a modification. Okay. So if it has not been submitted for a specific site plan
They would
approval,
come in compliance with this
it would
code.
be in compliance with
As
this.
written
If it
today.
has already been submitted and approved, then they may comply with this voluntarily.
Sure.
But they're not obligated to.
Right.
Correct.
I believe Ms. Frick would mention we can't legally supersede a legal action prior to adoption of this.
Yeah, I don't think
No,
retroactively.
but they could voluntarily.
Absolutely.
Okay, just so I understand, I wanted to, again, to your point earlier, verbalizing it, sometimes it sounds different than if you write it. And then obviously you've got the language in there that if a tree is otherwise removed or dies, then the property owner shall not replace that tree in compliance with this section. Okay. And Mr. Schroeder, this works from your perspective as far as the benefit to the township is water, sewer, sidewalks, curb, gutter,
Street.
trucks, school buses, apparatus,
Should take care of all the issues.
all the above. And it's not limited to one neighborhood, it's across the township. Okay. And then once we do this, I would recommend, if we choose to do this, I would recommend that if passed, that we share this with the city. So that, because I know obviously the fire apparatus goes into the city, and on occasion, it's possible our snowplow trucks could go into the city. It's possible our street sweeper would go into the city. So it'd be nice to have uniformity, if we can, across. Okay, great, thank you. Unless you had any questions.
I did. So the property owner shall not replace the tree in compliance with this section, but who is enforcing that? Like, say, something happens to a tree. I mean, would we know that the homeowner replaced it, or who are you guys enforcing that? I mean, the homeowner may not know that this, is being passed and it exists, and their tree gets hit by lightning and they go out and replace it.
I think with code enforcement, zoning code enforcement, emphasize that.
You can
Yeah,
put a
and-
message in the in touch.
Exactly. With any new adoption of a zoning text amendment or a zoning map change, there's always that period where you're right. Those that are seemingly just doing what they believe is the right is not in compliance. So that's where we have to do our job to get the word out. The in touch, public engagement, speaking amongst the members of the public. Like anything with code compliance, the key word is compliance. We're not after anyone particularly. We're not targeting. It's compliance. So we would try to educate and get the word out if this does pass. And we will have 2 public hearings by statute in order to enact this, as well as publication and a regular circulated publication. So there are stops in between before we can actually enact this.
I would presume, but that generally speaking, if a tree gets hit by lightning that's in the right of way and falls in the street, they call you anyway.
Right, yeah, so if a tree, let's just say a traffic accident, somebody hits a tree and it ends up out in the road, we usually get a phone call to go out and take care of that. So we would be able to
Educate them.
to a point, be able to notify for, zoning that, hey, we're out of this development, this tree got hit, just for you to keep an eye on in case it got replaced.
Yeah.
That's just a communication internally that we can obviously do with that.
It's just more educate them in case folks didn't hear about it. So.
Right, and we can, once this gets enacted, we can obviously use, all the social media pages we have on the public service side, we have ours, we can, get that word out, and again, to Mr. Rushing's point, we could probably, make it, kind of what we did in the past is make a board that kind of explains that so people at the Popcorn Festival could see it. I mean, there's a lot of avenues I think we can get that word.
The word has gotten out in some areas and some people are rejoicing over it. And then someone from Country Club of the North actually asked, "Can we do that in Country Club of the North?" And I said, "I believe your streets and you don't have right of way. It's all private."
Yeah, they're all private.
And I said, "So you'd have to do that." Yeah.
HOA.
Yeah. Okay.
Resolutions in front of you can be passed as presented.
Make a motion for resolution 2024-0528-CDR-A, a resolution to amend the text of the zoning resolution and transmit a copy to the zoning commission to prohibit trees in the street right of way as presented.
Second,
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
I'll turn this over to Mr. Grogan for the second part.
Thank you, Board, for that. The second item is the American Red Cross kind of provides some programs out there, one of which is called Sound the Alarm, Save a Life, which emphasizes the home fire preparedness. The program partners with organizations such as local fire departments to distribute and install smoke detectors, smoke alarms. Gotta get that right. And we'd like to participate in that. To do this, one of the first steps is to sign or have the township administrator sign a commitment form agreement with the American Red Cross. And just to let you know, that's the first step. We're developing actually a program for the fire preparedness. It'll actually be in conjunction with the CO detectors that were donated just recently by the Firefighters Credit Union. So I do have a motion to accept the attached agreement.
Questions? I move to accept the attached agreement between the Beavercreek Township and the American Red Cross to participate in a smoke alarm installation and fire preparedness education program commitment form and authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. We'll let you know the process.
Thank you for coordinating that.
Thank you, Board. We'll now move on to public service. Several action items.
one
Mr.
question real
Schroeder
quick.
is here.
Mr. Grogan, does the fire department, do you actively, so in all of these, I'll call it assisted living or independent living units, so from a standard inspection, is that once a year where you're going in and checking
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, we do, typically with the state run, we actually accompany the state when they come in, so we do a joint inspection. So
Even in the independent living,
independent living, like apartments and stuff like that, those are independent.
like if there's cottages, I know there's a couple of them in Beavercreek, and there's more
correct.
coming.
We will do independent from the state, but it's not regulated by
Okay.
the state, so we do those.
Thank you. Sorry.
Fine.
Good evening, Board. I have 3 items for your consideration this evening. The first one is a resolution to participate in the 2024 collective bid paving program, which is what we normally do. I sent the resolution through Ms. Frick, which she had no corrections or additions or anything like that. So that can be passed as presented. It's just, again, just the resolution to participate.
Any questions?
Nope.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2024-0528-PSD-A
As presented.
as presented.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Board. And as we got that out of the way, that allows me to go to the next one, which is a purchase request for said paving to take place in 2024. As I've described in the 15 points of light there, this year we're going to do about 1.46 miles of roadway. That's going to be full milling all the way across and putting it back. We're going to be up in Champions Way, up in that area, Spindletop. The price for this year was quoted back at $196,926.59. I've asked for a not to exceed limit of $250,000, just because when we get into paving, sometimes you run into some things that is a little bit more expensive, and sometimes you don't. So I just want to give us a little bit of room there. Obviously, whatever we don't use will go back in to the line, and then we'll put it back. So if there's any other questions?
When is the last time it was not John R. Jurgensen?
It was 2 years ago, 2 years ago it was Fillmore, and that was when we did Conservancy after the tornado, because they'd finally finished up the putting all the poles back and destroying the roads up in there with all the heavy equipment, and Fillmore did it. It wasn't the greatest job that we've had,
Sure.
But it was Fillmore, and I believe that was two or 3 years ago that we had them in there. Because last year we did the MVPRC grant. That was Jurgensen, obviously, but yeah.
Okay. And the 250,000 is within budget, as far as that doesn't
Yes.
exceed what
Yes, we
we
actually had
appropriated within
300.
appropriation. So
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, we talked about that in appropriations. We had about 300,000 in budget. We always add the cost of living and stuff like that into it, which was much higher. But then,
Sure.
I think John R. Jurgen, just with the amount of asphalt that they do and their facility around, they're able to reduce that cost. So that's why they're in there.
Good.
Okay, I'll make a motion 202-40528-PSD-B to approve purchase request VIP requisition number 24 PSD-00772 to John R. Jurgensen for paving services not to exceed $250,000, and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Thank you again. The last thing I have for you, which has been in discussion for quite some time, is the RFP for the library parking lot project. We finally kind of got through all the hurdles there. We ran into a couple minor things right here recently, but we've been able to push through that and get the library's approval for the project. The RFP is attached in here, and we're just looking to get that approved. Ms. Frick has looked at it, made the corrections that we needed, and so we're ready to get this out for advertising.
Make a motion to approve 2024-0528-PSD-C, approval for the Beavercreek Library RFP as presented.
Second.
Question. Does this include landscaping?
Landscaping, there was not much
landscaping to be done.
Or not? Okay. You'd do
it
that
was-
yourself, or maybe not yourself. Maybe the department would do that.
Yeah,
as
I mean,
far
if
as there
it's
was
minor,
landscaping.
they'll obviously put back minor stuff, a little bit of grass.
There'd be some seed or some.
Right, some little stuff like that. I mean,
Yeah.
but the only landscape that's really, I think, going to be affected is just there's a small island on the right when you go in.
Yeah.
The Red Buds area, which is that middle parking space, we're just going to put curb around it. None of the interior is going to be
Okay.
affected.
So you're not really disturbing that much.
No.
Okay. I just didn't see anything specifically called out. So.
Any other questions? Mrs. Dean? Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board. We now move over to our fire department. I'll turn it over to Chief Vandenboss to present the topics.
Good evening, Board. Thank you for your time. The first item we have for you this evening is a brief presentation for you by Captain Harrison regarding his most recent OFE experience. I'll turn it over to him.
Good evening, thank you. So, asked to come and give a short presentation on the OFE project or program that I attended. So that is the Ohio Fire Executive. So first wanted to thank the fire chief and the staff at the fire department for supporting that program and allowing us to do that. The professional development that we gain from that I think is going to be invaluable. It's a tremendous commitment for the department to be able to support the time off and the tuition and things like that. So very appreciative of the opportunity to be able to do that. And along with the board, obviously, whatever we do as a fire department, you guys have to support as a board, so appreciate that. So I wanted to do just a quick rundown of the program itself and then talk a little bit about the applied research project that I had to do for the program and how I think that can help us moving forward as a department. So for those that don't know, the Ohio Fire Executive Program is a 2.5-year program. We meet in person 2 weeks out of each year. So my class met in April and October for 2.5 years. And you attend over 200 hours of classroom session, do 400 plus hours of at-home work. So after each session, you would get homework assignments and different projects to accomplish that all applied to the fire service in general. Obviously, we tried to take that to what could be beneficial and utilized for Beavercreek Township. So one of the projects I participated in was our most recent reorganization with the captains going into the shift commander vehicle. So that was a change management project that we did in class, and some of those things were able to be utilized, as we went forward. So a lot of great information. We conducted over 8 papers, did presentations, impromptu presentations. We had some that we had information given to us beforehand and had to prepare, PowerPoint presentations, things like that. The class topics ranked from anything from ethics, media relations, public speaking, obviously a lot of HR, executive level, training that we all got. So the class started with 25 people from all across the state of Ohio. Different, there were 3 fire chiefs, a couple assistant chiefs, some captains and battalion chiefs, all ranks kind of represented. 23 of the 25 graduated, so made it through the whole program, so that was good. Instructors, they have anybody from college professors to active fire executives to retired fire executives, city manager, HR folks from across the state that all come in to participate and help try to build the future leaders of Ohio's fire service. So with all that, kind of the capstone or the big project that you have is an applied research project for the program. So you initiate that really before you even attend your first class. They give you kind of some parameters of what you should look for, and talked with the chief and different staff and some folks across the department, and decided to do mine on recruitment and hiring for Beavercreek Township. Obviously, it's been a significant factor for us, for the last 10 years at least, and it seems like it's going to become more challenging trend as we move forward. So With that, a couple of things I wanted to evaluate was, is it something that's exclusive to us as Beavercreek Township, or is it a, statewide, nationwide problem? The answer is it is not just our problem. And then what other agencies have done that's provided success for them? So, again, I sat in a class with 22 other fire departments, I think, represented. So the opportunity to pick their brain on what they were able to do and be successful with. Surveyed 30 fire departments across Ohio, so all of our neighboring jurisdictions, and then a bunch of my classmates to kind of get some information and be able to compile a good project for that. So again, and then the third part of that was how are the generational trends impacting recruitment and hiring in the fire service. And it was funny because in the results, unanimously everybody thought that generational trends were having an impact, but nobody could identify how. And even in the research project, there were a lot of things about how different generations approach work-life balance and things like that, but nothing that could say this is why this generation might choose the fire service or the police or whomever. So out of all of that, again, just kind of tried to come up with some recommendations. So, a few of the recommendations were to reevaluate and update the goals and objectives that we established through the strategic plan process. We had a goal through there to kind of reevaluate job descriptions and our hiring practices and things like that. A lot of which is in place now or continuing to be actively updated, especially with our new HR manager. We've had a lot of dialogue and discussion about that. A community-wide recruitment campaign. So, tried to look at exploring, we have the Fire Cadet program. How can we get involved with the, Greene County Career Center? What can we do with the school? So have met with, we met with the superintendent at the Greene County Career Center not too long ago to talk about what steps need to take place to reinvigorate the fire and EMS program out there. Talked with the representative principal at the high school and representative from Greene County there for job placement and things. So trying to work on what we can do to help expose this career and obviously Beavercreek Fire Department to the youth within Beavercreek and within Greene County. And then the more we can improve our own internal job satisfaction and get our folks internally to talk highly and recruit. One, we increase retention, which is a significant piece. We want to look at hiring as kind of that whole-sided approach where we recruit them to come in and work, but we also want to train them, help them advance, help them promote, help them have a healthy, successful retirement, and recruit other folks to come in and work here. So, and then probably one of the overarching things that has helped through the program is truly just building that additional network. So, as you guys all know, I'm sure with what jobs you do, the more connections you have and people, I think we even heard it once, like, don't reinvent the wheel. If there's a problem we're dealing with as an organization, there is another fire department in the state of Ohio that has probably had that same thing. And their solution may work for us. So, I have a list of 23 other folks now that I can call on any time and bounce ideas off of and things like that. So, so that is the general overview of the Ohio Fire Executive Program, at least my experience with it. Again, I applaud the chief and the board for supporting it. I think it's a tremendous asset for us moving forward. It's something that our officers that are aspiring to get into some of those higher level, executive level positions can benefit from, and truly does help us stay connected with the whole fire service industry. So I have answered any questions if anybody has any.
Is there anything that we're doing that some of the other places are not doing? Some of the other places, do they have cadet programs or?
So there's a wide variety. There are a few that have some cadet programs similar to us. There are probably the ones that were the most successful had an opportunity to partner with a local community college and utilize that partnership to help get the education and the state certificates that the folks need to be able to get hired on. So yeah, it's something that we can explore and look into for sure, but it would be a lot of work. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Couple things, and so as part of that program, you talked recruitment and dealing with retirement piece of it. So as far as the retention piece of it, was that a strong focus as far as once you've recruited people into the business, retaining them? So because obviously there's the old saying of, what if we train them and they leave, and the other one is, well, what if we don't train them and they stay?
Right.
But from a retention standpoint, we've had turnover, obviously, in our department for a number of different reasons. But aside from retirement, we've had turnover. Some of that has just been people had found out after they got into the service that it wasn't for them, from an emotional or just a mental perspective, as far as the mental game of it. So I don't know if there was any talk as far as from a retention standpoint, if there's anything that we're not doing that we should be doing. You can overcompensate people, obviously, and some will stay, but some will still leave because they don't enjoy the work.
Right.
So is there anything in the recruitment piece where we can filter better, like, for lack of a better term, to make sure people are really prepared, for the job,
right?
Mentally?
That was one of the areas I didn't focus on in my research, but I did note that was one of the big areas we probably need to look into more, because I do think, we had a higher turnover ratio than a lot of the other departments that I looked into. But ours was unique in that a lot of the folks that have left Beavercreek Township Fire Department have gone out of the career altogether, not to other organizations. So, there's that.
They left for a family business, or they left because it wasn't for them. Yeah.
In my what I kind of gather out of that is it does come down to that vetting process at the beginning and trying to make sure that we are hiring people. And it is difficult to explain to someone, especially someone. I was 18 when I started working here. Somebody my age then, that some of the things you're going to have to deal with and experience in this career, it certainly isn't for everyone, but it is still the best job out there.
Do we know, like, of our own department, I don't know if this is a known statistic, I'm confident we could put it together, but the percentage of our own department that is non-legacy, meaning it's not the family business? So,
I did
as far as firefighters in our department, how many of them? What's the percentage that they're the first in their family to do this?
I would say in our organization, we're relatively low in
meaning
legacy
high on,
firefighters.
Low on legacy. Okay. And I didn't know if we were consistent with the state across, or peer communities as far as peer-sized departments. I'm just curious.
That wasn't part of my research. So I don't know.
Because the other thing, it seems like we do a good job from a community outreach standpoint of reaching the little kids, with the hats and the coats and put out the fire and on the days where we do the open houses. But the question is, when they get to middle school, do parents encourage or discourage their children from considering that as they move into high school?
Right.
And
I
don't
that
know.
was probably more of my focus, was to try to bridge that gap, because I do think that's where we have much more opportunity, is to take advantage of, my own children are in high school now, and to try to kind of pick their brains and figure out, part of the limiting factor of one of my research pages was I wanted to go into the high school and do an interview with, pick 30 kids, 50 kids, whatever, but with the timing of how everything worked, it was summer break. When I had to turn that section in, so
it's more just like I said, I think our community outreach at the senior level and at the senior citizen level and at the young kids level is good.
Right.
The question is, if are we missing a piece in the middle that is about to make a decision?
Yeah. The answer is yes. We are.
So, and then if you somehow come up with a program to bring those sophomores and juniors into a station and expose them to something, could they find it exciting? I don't know.
Yeah.
Just throwing
I mean,
it out
we do
there.
have the fire cadet program that allows, so I think it's 16 and
that's
beyond.
that's a significant commitment, though. That's different than bringing them in on a sophomore day, or junior day.
Yeah.
For anybody that wants to go and see what it's like for a day to be a firefighter, compared to the commitment of becoming a cadet.
Yeah.
So it's more just from an exposure, just something to think about.
Yeah,
So
no, that was
you
one of
guys
the
are pros,
conversations I had
so-
with Mr. Wren at the high school, was about following up with how we get connected better.
Program obviously at the career center would you would think would be a catalyst for growing that, becoming that incubator at least. Now whether you retain them in Greene County is different. So unless you offer scholarship.
Yeah, I think the more involved our instructors are and things like that, of getting out there and doing that, if that program gets up and running, then the more impact we'll have.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to understand if our balance of legacy versus non-legacy is comparable, at least to our peer communities. So,
Yeah, I think it seems like the larger cities have much more of that legacy component to it,
Yeah.
than a lot of the.
And I would assume their retention is possibly higher. Because if our the question is if we have a higher fallout rate because either they don't have a reference to draw upon, either a family member that says, "Hey, your life's going to be hell,"
Right.
or they get into it and they realize it's really not for them.
Right.
So just throwing darts.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for committing yourself to it. So obviously you gave up some personal life for that as well. So.
Yeah, and it's, I think, valuable to recognize that Captain Harrison's applied research paper was one of four recognized for its excellence in this year's cohort. So he did an exemplary job and was recognized by the program as well.
Good. Congratulations.
All right, ready to move on?
On to
Absolutely.
retirement.
Yes. So the next item is a proclamation for the retirement for firefighter Scott Addis. He took a service retirement. He requested a little bit understated ceremony, so he had an informal ceremony with his crew. But we did still want to extend the same proclamation that we do for everybody, so we'll be getting that to him if the board passes it this evening.
Great.
You want to read it in, or just as
If you could read it.
Okay.
we'll go a second time here? I have a proclamation recognizing the career service and retirement of firefighter L. Scott Addis. Proclamation number 202-40528-Fire-8 adopted today, May 28, 2024. Whereas firefighter L. Scott Addis began his fire service career with the Springfield Fire Division in May 1999, contributing over 19 years of unwavering commitment and service as a firefighter, paramedic, and fire instructor. And on July 23, 2018, firefighter L. Scott Addis joined the Beavercreek Township Fire Department, where he served with distinction, primarily at Station 64, bringing joy, positivity, and an infectious smile to his work and his colleagues, who fondly dubbed themselves the Woo Crew. And firefighter L. Scott Addis played a key role in the design and development of the current accountability boards, a critical tool for tracking firefighter locations during incidents, thereby enhancing safety and operational efficiency. And as a fire and EMS instructor, firefighter L. Scott Addis was a mentor, guiding and inspiring newly hired firefighters with his knowledge, experience, and compassionate demeanor. And whereas firefighter L. Scott Addis was awarded the Firefighter Commendation Medal in recognition of his exceptional patient care and bedside manners, underscoring his commitment to excellence in service and care for the community. Now therefore be it proclaimed that we recognize and honor firefighter L. Scott Addis for his outstanding service, dedication, and contributions to the field of firefighting and emergency medical services to the citizens of Beavercreek Township and the city of Beavercreek, and congratulate you on your retirement from the Beavercreek Township Fire Department. And further, the board directs the fire department to retire unit number 121 upon firefighter L. Scott Addis's retirement.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Board.
Congratulations to firefighter Addis.
We'll pass that on and ensure that he gets a copy of this.
Perfect. I can get it. Thanks. Okay.
Then our next item is a proclamation recognizing EMS Week 2024. I had my tickler set a little bit too late to catch it before the prior meeting, and then obviously the cancellation of the first meeting of the month. We're catching it up. So it was last week. Our crews were recognized on social media, and then we culminated the week with a EMS open house that was hosted at the Green. I appreciate Ms. Walls coming out and supporting us and being present. We had much better turnout than we have had in the past several years with our community open houses and the stations, and we're looking for ways that we can continue to bolster that. So we'll do a little after action. We're also looking at some ways we can improve our social media context, and had some suggestions of that as well. So I've already talked to Michelle about exploring some of those possibilities. So we're kind of excited to see where that goes. But we do have a proclamation if you'd be willing to, that one could probably be as presented.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or however you'd like to do it.
I had neighbors that commented on it, and they were there with their kids. They went to the Green. They did not know it was happening. So, but they found out. So I don't know if it's possible if the Green, if they choose that as a location or venue in the future, if they would permit or allow you to put up any temporary signs, like at the entrance, to say that, hey, next, this week or this weekend, starting, if you put them up on like a Thursday or something.
Yeah, that's
it might
already been brought up.
create some awareness. Because
That
they had no idea it was happening, but they loved it.
Also,
So-
we talked about having McDuff and Sparky at the front entrance next year, kind of by the road to bring
Sure.
people
Flagging
in.
them in. Put them in a safety vest.
Yeah. Yeah. I also wanted to
Benz
thank,
is in it, yeah.
I'm sorry?
Benz is in the suit.
Yeah.
I want to thank Britton Sidiker as putting it together. He did a great job, and it was fun. We had fun bringing people in and taking pictures in the new fire truck, the 64, and people were like, "Oh, I don't want to get in." And then we had teenagers and young adults going in and taking pictures in the fire truck, pretending they were driving. So it started becoming a trend. So it was a lot of fun. And with the sheriff's department and Beavercreek Police there too, it was nice that we all got together and worked together.
Yeah, we had a great number of partners. In addition to law enforcement, like you just mentioned, Premier was out there, Children's was out there, was Kettering? Kettering was out there. So we had all of our local health partners were there as well. So yeah, it was a good time. And we're looking forward to building off of that. I think it was a good experience, especially after the past couple of years.
And we thought it was kind of a bigger draw than at the Green rather than having it at one of the stations.
Yeah,
I think we got more
definitely. You get
coverage.
walk-through traffic at the Green. You don't
Yeah.
get that at a fire station.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does she want to do that?
Yeah.
You want to do this?
Sure. I make a motion to adopt proclamation number 2024058-fire-B, a proclamation recognizing Beavercreek Township Fire Department's emergency medical service professionals as presented.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The last two items are related to each other. This is a replacement of out-of-date and out-of-repair rescue equipment. The first is for Paratech struts, which are they're basically stabilization devices that are used to stabilize motor vehicles that are not on their tires like they're supposed to be. Frequently we find them on their sides or on their tops, that sort of thing. For vehicles that are crash into each other where we need to support one from maybe impinging on another, structural collapse. They're pretty versatile devices, and they're replacing what we call rescue jacks. So once these are approved and delivered, we will be disposing of the old rescue jacks. They're no longer useful for the purpose for which we purchased them. Excuse me.
Any questions? If not, there's a motion in front of us.
I do have a question, and that was, I know that these, we can't put them on the .gov site, but I was wondering, we had talked if they could be sent to another country for use. We used to do that years ago, we talked, and if some other country could use them, they're not broken, but they're not within the service time that, within our legal parameters, and I was wondering if that would be something possible with that and the airbags as a donation to another country that may have nothing.
I mean, I know that, I think even if it applied to another country, there is a process for donation by the department or by the township. I think if that process was followed, it could be done. It's just that statutorily, there's a process for when you're going to donate stuff so that that opportunity to get the donation can be made available to others. So you're not just sort of picking and choosing who those donations necessarily go to. And
But
I suppose
in this case, though, this equipment, we would not want it to get out in the U.S. market.
I have
Correct.
to. I'll verify, but I'm pretty
Right.
sure the rescue jacks are not fit for
Right.
rescue use. So
Yeah, we talked about this like gray market in years past, and it was a valid and a good recommendation, but the practicality of it became the obstacle.
Yeah, and we can revisit it. Certainly.
yeah, we can look at
Because
it.
we hadn't looked at it for a couple of years, they said.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and just
if that's board
ensuring that it
preference,
does
we'll
not get
absolutely look at
into
it.
I hate to
the
have
US
them
market.
thrown away because they're not broken. It's just that they're not within the lifespan of what they're,
Yeah. So
to be
we'll,
used.
We'll explore that, and if so, what we'll do is, assuming the purchase proceeds, we'll set them aside, do our research, and then come back with you with whatever the process will be to make the donation.
And cost, if there's a cost to getting it out of the country or something, so, okay.
So I don't know, the last time we did it, that was managed by a retired chief, so I'll have to see if she still knows any sources, or that'll probably be the big thing, is making the
Okay.
first contact. So yeah, we'll do a little bit of research.
Thank you.
And
Appreciate
see
that.
if we can do that.
okay.
Doctors Without Borders or something like that might know.
Yeah.
So,
I'll make a motion to approve purchase request, my motion 2024058-Fire-C, a purchase request 24 Fire 0204 to Atlantic Emergency Solutions for Paratech struts and equipment in the amount of $28,993.14, and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
yes.
Thank you, Board. And then the second purchase is for airbags, and we have opted to switch manufacturers. The airbag manufacturer is the same as the strut manufacturer, and there is some compatibility between the devices as such, so it gives us a few more options when technical rescues are essentially really creative problem-solving challenges. And so the more tools that we can give our folks to solve those problems, the more creative they can get in getting it done and getting it done quickly. And so we think that going with the same brand and having that cross-compatibility is a value. So we'll be replacing our end-of-life airbags with these new Parastrut.
And these airbags, are you lifting a vehicle with them? Or are you floating a
They're
vehicle with them?
predominantly lifting.
Okay.
Yeah, these are not like water airbags. It's
You're lifting.
Exactly.
Okay.
Lifting and stabilizing again.
Okay.
So the advantage, obviously, with the airbags is they can fill a void a little bit different than the way the struts would.
Sure.
Make a motion to approve purchase request 24-fire-0198 to Atlantic Emergency Solutions for airbag replacement in the amount of $11,218.93, and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Thank you, board, and we'll do the same thing with the airbags. as we
Thank
did
you
with
very
the
much.
struts.
Thank you.
That's all I had for you, unless you have any questions for me for the Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, board. I did make a minor mistake, and I did, Mr. Fessler from Paragon did have a couple of informational items that he wanted to present. So if the board would allow, I'd like to have Mr. Fessler come up and present those quickly.
Board, a couple awareness items that may not have made it through on this packet is one of our reports for our security updates was reporting that we weren't as patched as we technically are due to a security update was being blocked by our firewall. That has since been rectified. There really was no liability for or no risk to the township, but the report that may or may not have made it to you will show a discrepancy in that. The second thing is we had an HVAC failure in the building next door last week. Mr. Schroeder was able to come out and meet the vendor to do some maintenance on that. That will likely be an awareness item. That unit is basically at capacity, which means as the summer months begin to come in and the heat starts to increase, we may need to do an expenditure to increase the capacity of that system. Special thanks to Mr. Schroeder for coming out 2 evenings in a row and early in the morning to meet the mechanical firm to get that rectified. And then Sunday, the township has experienced a fiber cut for our primary internet. We're running on our backup connection, so thank you for previously approving that. They're hoping to have that restored tomorrow, but that does impact the sheriff's substation. They currently do not have connectivity back to Xenia because they ride that primary connection. So I just want to make sure you are aware of those 3 items.
Question on the HVAC system. So can we put a mini split in there to solve that?
That's what's.
Can you add a backup for redundancy or for added capacity?
That room is super small. We've used.
It's the one that was a tiny little
it's
office.
The one in station admin in Ms. Hiles' office.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's a very small room. I think we've used up every ounce of space that we to even put in an auxiliary unit. So Mr. Fessler and I discussed that. Excuse me. And that's where I think it may be.
The new mini splits are
high
efficient.
Capacity.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the only true option. There's not a really good way to put a rooftop unit. I mean, that building just is very limited on what options we have. But again, we also learned that is a dual coil system. And what has been happening is I think not a lot of the technicians knew it was dual coil. So they've been brushing the outside off, and a lot of stuff was pinched in between. So we separated that the other morning and cleaned it out. So I would like to see how this operates down the road. You know, we get into July, August, when it really starts to get warm, and see if it is at capacity or if that was just truly a maintenance item that we overlooked. So again, it's more of a just an awareness item that it could be coming, but we're not 100% certain.
When I would argue with my mother at home in the summer when I was in middle school, my father he was in HVAC, and he would make me clean condenser coils, so I know exactly what you're talking about. As far as the sheriff's substation, are they not on a cradle point where they can fail over to a hotspot?
Not from inside the building. Anything that's in their vehicles is functional. Should be going through that mechanism. It's just the systems that are in this building here, the way their connection to the county, to the city is, the county, It does not, through our infrastructure, facilitate and utilize that backup link. There's some limitations with the way they do their VPN that currently locks them into just one connection.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, going back to the HVAC, isn't that a fairly new system? Didn't we just,
That system's actually about, 17. It was back in 2017, so it's new. It's older than.
7 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's got some time on it.
it seems
but
like
again,
we just bought that.
We did just buy a secondary for this building, yes.
Okay.
That might be what
Maybe
you're
that's what
calling.
it was.
Right.
Okay.
This server room does have a backup. It has two. It has a backup. It has a primary and a backup system, and that's also another mini split that runs off this corner here. So maybe that is what.
This is the little room that was the alternative to the IT shed, correct? Okay. Yeah, I remember those days. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that particular room, just to clarify, is probably the second most important communication room for the township. All of the connectivity to all the other stations goes through that room, as well as to public safety, and our backhaul up to the county for our public safety traffic. So we are very much proactive in monitoring that room and make sure that it doesn't exceed a temperature. It got close, but again, Mr. Schroeder's quick response in getting boil out at least allowed us to stay within threshold.
Is there any way we can make that room bigger? I mean,
No.
there's nothing we can take over?
No.
Shelter would be your only other option to remove that from the building.
We actually talked about building a shelter at one point, multiple times.
More space.
Yeah.
So the various item is, it's operational at this time, but you may see a request to maybe upsize that system since we know we're within the threshold of if it starts to get too dirty. The ability to recover quickly isn't there.
So to Ms. Wallace's point, though, so in a restaurant, if you ran out of space, you'd buy essentially a modular walk-in cooler and bolt it onto the outside of the building with a door that goes through. So can we, and in lieu of building a freestanding, which is what we talked about, shelter, and then all the underground stuff that was in between that was going to be a mess, is there a way to bolt on a modular building?
I'm sure structural engineering architect can figure out how to connect those two pieces.
We do it in restaurants all the time. We put a walk-in cooler right outside of a shopping center. So
The fiber poses the biggest challenge since the fiber that goes to the public safety building, the fiber that goes to the fire station all run through that same little area there.
right, I'm just thinking if they still came if the feed still came in to where it comes in today, and you had an extension bolted onto the building, it requires a concrete pad. It requires some isolation, but it's an extension. I don't know how ugly it would be, but
The difficulty is the wall space on that exterior wall has the electrical service and the fiber service coming in to the same place. So there's not really much real estate. Randy, you can probably speak better than that. Yeah, it's it would be an engineering feat to do that, and that is the electrical service for the whole building. That room's barely big enough for a human, let alone. I mean, it's very
Well, and that's-
tiny,
yeah.
And we do, like, to his point, all the connections come through that wall. Service is on that wall.
right, and I'm not talking about abandoning the wall. I'm talking about essentially putting something on the outside of the building. I mean, you know it, obviously. I just remember there was issues with when we were talking about relocating all of that. It was a mess as well. So.
Yeah, there's just not an exterior wall space to connect to is the point.
get
All
that.
those utilities are on.
It's all
It's all
interior.
on that exterior wall.
Yeah, I'm sure it could be engineered.
Was there was no window in that room? I don't remember.
No, there's
Yeah.
no. I think if it was if you were asking a recommendation for me, I would rather just look at a freestanding structure rather than try to accommodate that space. I think it would just be.
Yeah.
We'd spend a lot of time in trying to engineer that, where you would probably have less time just put in a freestanding structure, make it however you want, what size you want, if you want to have the backup, units to keep the room cool. And we have a primary, which we could easily take off out of that room, put it to the new structure, and then we could put it back up in that structure. I think you're gonna save more time and money just doing a freestanding structure than trying to add on to that building,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for me?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, board. That's all I have this evening.
Ms. Frick.
Yes, thank you, Board. we have before you a resolution to potentially extend the moratorium on the cultivation, processing, and retail sale of adult use cannabis. The reason for that is, one, it's set to expire on first or second week of June, so we're getting close. But although there have been rules proposed, it's gone through a number of public hearings. The most recent was in April 23rd. They had public comments, which were due to be done by May 10th. Nothing has been enacted yet. Some of the proposed rules and why it may still be important for us in terms of a zoning perspective, as I looked at them, did have things that dealt with fencing, lighting, security, things like that that would be required, particularly on the cultivating, which might be something that we ultimately want to be incorporating into any zoning resolutions or things like that that we put together when this is finalized. Now, they were required, the legislature's required to promulgate those rules within 9 months, which will put them at about August, I think, anyways. So my suggestion was, if you want to extend it another 90 or maybe 120 days, just to allow it for that time, for those rules to be finalized, and then we can know what we need from the township's perspective.
Ms. Frick, the legislation that we already passed related when this came around with medical marijuana. So essentially we said no to dispensaries at the time. Mm-hmm. Was that text language specific to medical or to dispensaries in general? And then I know we also had language as far as processing and cultivating, and we had permitted one cultivating, and I don't remember if we put a number on processing, but my question is, doesn't the language we already have in place, was it specific to medical?
I would have to go back and check, but I believe that we did, because at the time, given that it was only medical that was approved, but I honestly don't know.
I know we had,
for sure.
I just remember having discussions.
Retail sale.
Yeah, well, that's dispensary, so that's what I'm saying. I thought we contemplated that medical would evolve into recreational.
And I apologize, I don't recall.
Okay.
Off the top of
Purely
my head.
I'm not opposed to extending this, but only if it's redundant to what you might look at our legislation we already have in place to see if we just need to modify that language, or rather than recreate the wheel, as you would say. So,
well, and I know some of the proposed rules too have, processes where if you are previously approved for medical,
right,
being able to apply for the
it's an
recreational and different things like that.
It's a fast pass.
So there might be some overlap there, but I apologize. I just don't recall off the top of my head.
It might be worth looking into to see if we already covered the bases, or if we can simply add a word or modify and make it any and all.
Do that.
But don't we need to do this now because of the dates that you were saying?
That'd be our recommendation. Yeah. There would be a lapse
I'm just
technically.
saying before we go through the process of going through putting together a whole new text.
But they're just saying that.
Correct. They're two separate issues. Yes, we should pass the resolution, and before we go through the process of drafting new legislation, look at the legislation we already have to see if it was all encompassing.
Right. Understood.
So.
If it went, and we have this still open, we didn't put a recommendation, depending what the board wanted to do. If we went 90 days, it would put us into early September. So, I mean, I think that should be sufficient.
There's nothing saying that if you went 90 now and you needed another 90, you could go another 90 at that point. So,
yeah.
It keeps.
So you're recommending 90, or should we go 120?
No, I think we could probably do 90 and go from there. I just saw, though, Oh, okay. No, so I think we could do it at 90 and evaluate it then, because I believe they're close to getting these rules finalized, I think.
Or just to give you an update, in June 12th of 2017, you passed 2 resolutions for medical marijuana, and they both say medical.
They say medical?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe that can be amended.
Okay.
You agree to 90?
Yeah, 90's fine. You want 91?
Yes.
91?
90 days is
Gonna
fine.
come out with 7-hour energy drinks, just so you know.
Unfortunately, since this was an amendment or
It has to be
amended,
read in.
it has to be read.
Oh, yippee. I'll make a motion for resolution number 202405528-legal-A, adopted May 28th, 2024, extending a moratorium on the cultivation, processing, and retail sale of adult use cannabis within Beavercreek Township. Whereas on November 7th, 2023, majority of Ohio voters passed Issue 2, now Chapter 3780 of the Ohio Revised Code, which became effective December 7th, 2023. And a new Chapter 3780 of the Ohio Revised Code established a division of cannabis control within the Department of Commerce, which shall provide for the licensure of adult use cannabis cultivators and processors, cannabis testing laboratories, and adult use dispensaries. And for the purpose of this resolution, the definitions of cultivators, processors, and adult use dispensaries are given the same definitions as those found in Chapter 3780 of the Ohio Revised Code. And whereas Ohio Revised Code Section 3780.25, a Township Board of Trustees may adopt a resolution to prohibit or limit the number of adult use cannabis operators permitted, limiting the number of adult use operators as defined by ORC 3780.012 within the unincorporated territory of the township. And whereas the Beavercreek Township Board of Trustees previously passed resolution number 202-31211-legal-A, imposing a 180-day moratorium to allow time to evaluate whether to limit or entirely prohibit the cultivation, processing, and or dispensing of adult use cannabis, or alternately to develop and implement regulations regarding the possible location and operation of cannabis-related businesses within Beavercreek Township, including cannabis-related cultivators, processors, and adult use dispensaries. The Ohio Division of Cannabis Control has 9 months,
Should be 9.
none months.
Should be 9 months.
That's what, 9 months as I read. From the passage of Issue 2 to complete the rulemaking and licensing process for non-medical cannabis, and as such finalized proposed rules regarding adult use cannabis have not yet been enacted. And whereas township staff require additional time to review and make recommendations on zoning, prohibition, and or limitations of cannabis operators, so that any necessary regulations conform to goals of the Beavercreek Township Board of Trustees and help ensure the public peace, health, safety, and welfare of its citizens. And whereas an additional moratorium of 90 days on the authorization or establishment of any cannabis-related business in Beavercreek Township will allow the Board of Trustees and township staff time to accomplish the township goals to help ensure the public peace, health, safety, and welfare of its citizens. Now therefore be it resolved by the Beavercreek Township Board of Trustees that, Section 1, pursuant to the authority granted to the Board of Trustees under Ohio Revised Code Section 3780.25 and ORC Code Chapter 504, the Beavercreek Township Board of Trustees hereby establishes an additional moratorium of 90 days with respect to the authorization or establishment of any cannabis-related businesses within Beavercreek Township, including but not limited to cannabis-related cultivators, processors, or adult use dispensaries. And in Section 2, for the duration of this moratorium, township staff are prohibited from issuing or processing any permits or approvals for any cannabis-related businesses, including cannabis-related cultivators, processors, or adult use dispensaries within Beavercreek Township. And Section 3, the Board of Township Trustees directs township staff and legal counsel to investigate and review the implementation of Chapter 3780 of the Ohio Revised Code and related regulations. Township staff will then make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees with respect to township regulations regarding the cultivation, processing, and adult use dispensing of cannabis. In Section 4, all formal actions of the Board of Trustees concerning and relating to the passage of this resolution were taken in an open meeting of this board, and that all deliberations of this Board of Trustees that resulted in formal action were in meetings open to the public in compliance with all legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. You owe me.
Second.
Could you read?
Yeah.
I think
Can you repeat that for the minutes? Ms. Wallace?
Yeah.
Mrs. Dean? Yes. Mr. Kratz?
yes.
Whew.
Based on the sound of that, you might just be able to add the adult use piece to the medical one you already have.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna pull that old. and
Just
pick
might
it up.
save you some.
Nope, that's all.
Board, I got a few items for you tonight. First of all, Mr. Rushing sent out earlier that we received the designation from the auditor of state for the STARS highest achievement, which is openness and transparency. It is on a essentially 0 rating all the way up to a 4-star rating. The township received the 4-star rating, and that was for 2022 because they look at that when we're doing audits. That is everything from our public records requests that they review when they get here, our transparency of things that we provide, open checkbooks, and all the stuff that we put on the website and regarding your packet that you present to the community and of course our YouTube videos. To put it in perspective, of all local jurisdictions, this includes cities, counties, townships, school districts, and any other special district, including libraries. In 2021, only 14% received the highest achievement. So for 2022, we did receive the highest achievement, and we are part of that percentage that hopefully will come out in another bulletin from the auditor of state. That leads to this motion. One thing that the auditor is recommending, and the several classes I've attended this year, is that on an annual basis that we designate 2 people. We used to be able to designate 1 person. They are recommending you designate 2 people to be your representative under the Sunshine Law training. So I had some discussion with Mr. Rushing. We're going to go ahead and pass the motion now. And then this will be a part of our board reorg of something that we do every year and designate the fiscal officer and the township administrator. I am scheduled to attend the class on June 5th, so I believe that's next Wednesday, or a week from tomorrow. And as part of that, I have to list all the names that are, besides myself going to the training, I have to list the elected officials that I'm representing at that training. So there is a motion in your packet.
I make a motion to approve 20240528-FIN-A. Prove that the fiscal officer and the township administrator will be the designatees that satisfy the 3-hour per term Sunshine Law training session for Beavercreek Township Board of Trustees.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
That's all I have for you tonight, Board.
The on that topic of sunshine laws, I know we had this when we had the joint meeting with BZA and with Zoning Commission. We had at least some level of discussion as far as there was a reminder from legal as far as that BZA and Zoning Commission communications are also subject to public records requests whenever they're talking about township business, and that we cannot impose an obligation for them to attend any sunshine law or public records or training of that nature. But is there any, have we offered anything to them that they could volunteer to take so that they have an awareness as far as sunshine laws and what they are?
I feel like it's been quite a few years ago, but that the prosecutor's office may have done that as part of it, but it's been a while.
I don't know if it's worth maybe dusting that off and having a third party, not somebody from the township, but if the prosecutor's office would do it or someone else would do it, and just host host it, and I mean all of us could benefit from attending it and a refresher. So,
in conjunction with the prosecutor's office, we also did the Ohio Ethics. Brought someone in from the Ohio Ethics, and we recorded it, which so that anybody that missed it, whether township employees,
I thought we did something
or boards. So we did, and the prosecutor's office also attended it, and we opened it up to other communities. So, prosecutor's office focused on the sunshine law, and then we had someone from the Ohio Ethics Commission do that training.
it's just I had something forwarded to me the other day, and there was a lot of chatter about a topic that was going back and forth between members. So I think it would be, and it was not through their township email addresses. So it's just something I
think
recommend.
it's a good idea.
Just some kind of refresher, some kind of basic to cover it. So
We will certainly do that.
because you should not be naming names and picking winners and losers. So. Okay. MVRPC.
Before I start with MVRPC, I wanted to recognize our HR director, Jill, for the new credentials that she just attained. So congratulations, and thank you very much for pushing forward and receiving those and studying and getting that. Thank you.
Thanks for fulfilling your commitment.
Yes. And there is nothing to report, MVRPC.
TAC.
There was a meeting this month. You will see a report of the agenda on next month's.
Opioid Regional Task Force.
We had a meeting today. I was not able to go to it because we had this early session today. But we're moving forward with the executive committee, which I'm on as vice president. We had to disclose all our payroll sources as an individual, conflicts of interest, because I'll be on the RFP review process. There's a review session, a training session tomorrow that I have to attend, and we have 156 RFPs that came into our Region 14 that we will be reviewing at some time in the future and recommending for funding.
Greene County Regional Planning meeting started 7 minutes and 8 seconds ago. So I am here, not there, for the full commission, but in the executive committee. There's two things on the agenda that impact Beavercreek Township. One is the Nathaniels Grove Section 11 final record plan. I would normally have to recuse myself anyway, but that is moving forward. And then the RPCC, the Regional Planning Coordinating Commission bylaws. So there's an amendment to that going through relative to the executive committee, and in the event that an executive committee member cannot make the meeting. So what we decided to do was propose to the full commission, that's being proposed this evening, is that we adopt an amendment to the bylaws that provides for the full commission to nominate members of the commission to serve as a possible alternate for an executive committee member. And so executive committee members are nominated and then appointed by the full commission. So in this case, it would not be Beavercreek Township for Beavercreek Township. It would be another regular member of the full commission could essentially be nominated as a backup for the executive committee in the event that someone could not attend. The only position that is difficult is a commissioner from that role, so we're still working through that process. But that was being put forth this evening, so they were going to ask for them to amend the bylaws and then ask for nominations by the next meeting next month of who would like to be it's somebody that's on the commission now, so that would be nominated, not jurisdiction specific. So so that was going to move forward this evening, and I think that's about it. So there was some discussion about White Barn Trail Section 2 and essentially some modifications to that. There was some misinformation and some good information that was presented relative to the sanitary sewer elevation change and how that may impact. The county commissioner was insisting to make sure that the developer knew that the county would not pay for a lift station, and it took 3 or 4 rounds of Bitch Kostler saying we don't need a lift station. We're just changing the elevation 3 to 4 feet, but there's plenty of drop. So that was happening at the executive committee. That should have been flushed out, no pun intended, by tonight. So, okay. Health Department Advisory Council.
The next meeting is first Thursday of June. It's June the 6th. So at our next meeting, I will have information on that.
Okay. School Superintendent, City Manager, Township Administrator.
Meeting tomorrow.
Wright-Patterson Air Force Base Restoration Advisory Board.
No meeting.
Water and Wastewater Committee for Greene County.
Yes, Board. I attended that meeting. As you know, Greene County Sanitary Engineering is focusing right now on the softening of Greene County water. By mid-August, they will start introducing the softened water. Currently, right now, we are experiencing about 27 grains of hardness. Their goal is for 8 or 7 grains of hardness. It's going to be a 12-week introduction of the softened water. So from mid-August through October, we will see that drop from, again, 27 grains to a targeted between 7 and 8 grains of hardness. During that time of introducing the softened water, they're going to do a tour, Greene County Sanitary Engineering, and meet with all the local jurisdictions that utilize Greene County utilities.
And when Mr. Glazer was still with us, he spoke frequently about the introduction of this softened water and what it would do to residents' water softeners. And so was that myth or was that real? And what's the county's preparedness for?
From my understanding,
is everyone's water softener is going to fail within 2 years.
From my understanding, that is why they're introducing the softened water in the schedule of 12 weeks. Because, yes, if we just turned it on, not that you could, but turn on a switch and go from 27 grains to 7 in a day, that would have impact to your water softeners and other personal equipment. But from the position, no, it would not impact. And actually, you would not want to get rid of your softener because you can achieve lower hardness, obviously, with a softener in addition to the water introduced. A personal softener at home could achieve grains of 4, 3, 2, down to 0.
Okay. And then Township Association.
The next meeting is June 11th. They're requesting RSVPs to Mike Hartley, the president, and so they're asking to send the RSVP directly to him.
And 911, Investment Oversight Committee. Anything to report?
We're trying to schedule a meeting hopefully in June.
Okay. And we're just trying to reach our member at large from the community, and if need be, we may need to look for a replacement. The 911 Advisory Committee, Chief Easter, you want to give the update that you gave to the...
Our last meeting was June the 6th. I'm sorry. We have scheduled a meeting in July. We're looking to get compliance with our state required reporting. I did last week complete our federally required reporting with the FCC for Greene County, so that has been filed with the state and the feds. From that perspective, we are still waiting on some financial reports from 2 of the did since the last meeting receive the compliance report from the third center in Greene County, so that has been filed with the state. My time right now is still about 5 hours a week, almost 20 hours a month, pretty consistently. That is spent updating the Master Street address guide for Greene County with new construction, as well as making corrections as they're discovered by folks out in the field for address verification. So we've done that path and everything's moving forward.
Great. A couple other things we talked about. So we did say that we would come back at the next meeting, so with a model, essentially a cost model of how Beavercreek Township is going to request to be compensated for Chief Easter's time, which would be extraordinary costs, not costs related to if someone else were fulfilling your position on the committee, what your normal cost would be for Beavercreek Township to provide information or participation as any other jurisdiction is doing. So it's the extraordinary cost, not the everyday cost of being part of Greene County. The second thing that we talked about from the last meeting, where it was the first month where we had received the new funds from the state, we determined that there was a $10,000 to $13,000 carryover, or $10,000 to $13,000 bump in the amount of money that came in to the county from the state. We weren't sure if that was a one-time blip, or if that was going to be what we should anticipate on a monthly basis going forward. The second month that came in, it was roughly another $13,000 over what it historically would have been. And it appears there's no seasonality to it, that it's fairly flatlined throughout the year as far as what comes in. So to refresh, we agreed as a committee to build those as a reserve, essentially for a few months, 3 to 6 month period. We would look at it again and determine, number one, if there were any extraordinary costs for PSAPs as far as what was coming up for them, and then any extraordinary cost to reimburse Beavercreek Township as a catch-up, but then also on an ongoing basis. So that those dollars would be used for that. So, but it looks like we now have a 2-month track record, but still to be determined if that's going to be a annual type bump. So anything else that we didn't?
The projections from the state show that Greene County should be getting close to the $20,000 disbursement increase. So we're not quite there yet, but they're still ramping up. They are continuing to trend that way. So
good. Okay. There was also discussion as far as the coordinator that's been brought in at the county level and contract. That the county administrator is keeping his foot to the pedal on that process to try to keep driving it forward. There was some discussion. Fred Kramer from Sugar Creek Township brought up, accountability and transparency, and so it was some ambiguity tossed around, and essentially we kind of landed on, hey, you can just take your Gantt chart and tell us if you're running ahead or behind schedule, so it stays in front of us, and we don't get 6 months down the road and realize we need another 9 months. So it's to get to the phase we should have been at. So, okay. Thank you. If there's anything else to come before the board in this portion, if not, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session under Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G1 to consider the employment and compensation of a public employee.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
And then adjourn the meeting.
7:37. Do we have a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Thank you.